Let's kick off with our last speaker is Wes Hall. Wes is a fire application specialist for the Wildland Fire Management RDNA. As an assigned product owner, he is tasked with overseeing development of the next generation of WFDS. Wes is a qualified LTAN and chair of the Fire Environment Continuing Education Subcommittee. He spends his time away from work with his lovely wife and 2 girls, but soon to be 3. Let's get the presenter role transition to Wes. Thanks for providing us with the next gen update.
Okay, welcome, or thank you everybody. Like Diane said, my name is Wesley Hall. I'm product owner for next generation of WFDS. Helping oversee the development with a few others as well. There's actually quite a large team here. I'm going to go through these slides very quickly and just let everybody on this this call know where next generation of WFDS is and what our timeline's looking at and what we're trying to hopefully provide in the near future. So overall, the WFDS strategy problem, current WFDS can be unclear on what the leader's intent is and what the sidebars are to operate in. And that's really where we're sitting with the way that WFDS currently sits. And that's the big impetus in steering towards the next generation of WFDS is trying to make things clear in terms of what the leader's intent is, how that ties in with the forest plan or the land management plan for that unit. And really how we frame risk management in WFDS or on the fire line with that decision. So here's the next generation of WFDS staff. As you can see on the list here, it includes almost everybody from the WFM RDA, so the Wildfire Management RDNA. They're either involved directly or indirectly with this effort. It's a pretty massive effort, to be honest. Both the DOI and U.S. Forest Service folks are working on it. We are supported by FAMIM and others, and so it's a great breadth of folks working on this effort. Okay, so the focus, advances in technology, especially the adoption of ArcGIS Online platform by the federal agencies, really have helped us push things forward with the way that we're building next generation of WFDS. We're also, there's a major shift in how fire planning data is going to be stored, managed, and used, and that will be part of the system as well. But we're pushing towards more of an ease of use. Mobile technology used on mobile devices, the scalability so that really decisions can be done on more wildfires, down to the type 5 and all the way up to type 1 in area command or complexes, that sort of thing. So we're trying to be, faster, more intuitive, easier to use, kind of the more one-stop shop avenue. But in order to do that, we have to build a foundation, and that foundation has to be really strong. So in any IT application, it's really the strong foundation that kind of houses how everything's going to build up from that. And this has been our focus for quite some time now. And actually, recent delays have been related to building that foundation as well. We're lucky we just finally got released on our formal production, or not production, rather, our formal development environment. So we're moving to an AWS system for our foundation, and we are building up from there. But it's taken some time to build that pipeline and build that foundation. So we're looking forward to actually being able to move forward with the development of the application side now. The other thing that Next Gen WFDS will be moving towards is services. So we're going to be shifting a lot of the things that are currently in classic WFDS will be fed by services. And the benefits of services are that we can apply and we can show better, more accurate data faster. We can use the most authoritative data for other applications. Any updates happen, you can update the authoritative source, and then everything after that authoritative source gets updated as well because you're linked to that service. There's less overall maintenance of the application that way, and we can plug new things in as they come online. It just makes things a whole lot easier for change in the future, whereas classic WFDS was really restrictive on that. Some of the drawbacks are that loads and internet slowness could become a potential problem, and we're trying to work out some solutions for that. there's less redundancy. So if a service does fail, everything that service feeds will also fail. So that we'll have to work through some of the nuances on that. But overall, there's the benefits of services far outweigh some of the drawbacks. So that's why we're moving towards services. So a little bit back on that house, you know, we build upon the foundation, and then we have, you know, that in building that good foundation, it saves you money in the long run and also saves you time. And so Wooftis really is the focus of is to have a foundation, have a good platform, and then be able to utilize services and other add-ons to make the system usable and changeable over time. Let me go to the next slide. All right, so again, services, the tentacles of the octopus is what we call them. So you can see in the middle, the blue octopus is NextGen. That's the foundation, the house, so to speak. And we have all these services that are going to feed into that system. We have a data service, which is going to supply many of our map layers, fire locations from IRWIN, the National Feature Service fire perimeters, various layers from EGP, hopefully eventually some RMA layers that Rick just showed as well. And then we also are building a spatial fire planning service, and that'll house that land and resource management plan. So folks on the call may be familiar with putting your land management and resource plans, shapes, and language directly into Wooftis as a data manager. That's going to change a little bit because we're going to feed that information through a service, which provides you, the user, more flexibility in order to get in there and adjust your data. The models themselves and the analysis will be a service. So the Fire Model Service Framework, which has been an RDA project for a number of years, is going live into production, and we are going to connect to that service and provide all the models that we already know, basic, near-term, short-term, and FS Pro. But to obtain all the inputs for that model, we are also going to use services. So we're going to attach to the Land Fire service, which will be providing our landscapes as well as the edits to those landscapes. And then our intention is to also connect to weather services such as FIMS, WIMS, in order to get our RAWS data, our gridded weather, our forecast, etc. So the Spatial Fire Planning Service, in a nutshell, it's been an ongoing project for a little over a year now. I think we're getting close to 2 years now. But the focus is going to be within the NIFC org, ArcGIS Online. It's being built by a number of folks, but primarily Andrew Bailey from the Wildfire Management RDA is kind of heading up this process. And the ultimate goal is to build a system that can be more easily adjusted by folks on the ground. So when your land management plan changes or when your shapes change, you have the ability to go into the system and make those changes really in real time and apply those into Wooftis. With that, there will be a change in the spatial strategy process in how NextGen works compared to where classic Wooftis works. So just to start, you know, in a 1, 2, 3 fashion, we're going to start with relative risk, and everybody here that has used Wooftis has seen relative risk, has built the relative risk. It's going to be very similar, although there will be tools at your disposal to make those calls on to how to assess your relative risk easier. Our focus is to trying to get you the tools you need to answer those questions. And then the step 2 will be the spatial strategy, and that's really how are you going to assign the spatial strategy to really spatial shapes on the ground, and kind of build that strategic plan of where, why, and when things need to be implemented. And then the step 3, of course, is the organizational needs assessment. That's who's going to manage that fire. And then for this optional tactics, we'll not come out with the initial launch of Wooftis, but we're looking at some tactical type things to go into Wooftis that can help with, you know, tactical alternatives, whether it be PACE model, exposure analysis, of course, management action points. Most folks know objectives and requirements specific to the incident. Okay, so that, like I said, that strategy assessment, we're going to assess the planning area, policy objectives, and requirements. You're going to assess a strategy and develop a strategy there, and then move forward from that, and then elaborate on that strategy. So given the strategy assigned, what does that mean? What are the goals? What are the safety concerns? What are those requirements? And then the organizational needs assessment, followed by the final step, and that's the rationale. Of course, my decision is to X, Y, and Z. We've got a few more slides here. Follow up pretty quickly. We're hoping to incorporate many of the RMA products, including incident timeline, aviation use, snag hazard, the MDAT table potentially in phase 2. Ground evac map is in phase 1 as well. Pods, we're working on solutions for those pods or potential operational delineations that Rick spoke to as well. The resource timeline, trade-off analysis, and seeding and analysis will all also be phase 2 projects. So for our next steps, we're currently still in Q1, but we're moving forward with some of the, like I said, some of that foundation work in the application. But our next focus is to jump into Q2 and work on some user interface and some user feedback. And then the big one is we're going to jump into developing analysis. So we're building the user interface and the way that we're going to connect to the model service framework to build our analysis. That will be followed up this fall by our focus into strategy. Our tentative timeline, and I say tentative because we have been delayed a few months, Q1 in 2022, which may go into Q2, would be our training environment launch and our production environment launch, with enhancements coming in immediately after that. So we're using agile development. As soon as we launch our production launch, that will be immediately followed up with enhancements to continually update the system. And finally, I'll just say we are looking for feedback and participation. So if you're interested in giving your 2 cents on how NextGen is being developed, please go to our NextGen user group page on FAMIT portal, and that'll get you on the list, and we'll let you know when we need feedback. And with that, Diane, I am done.
Very good. Thank you, Wes. Thanks to all of our presenters today. We've got, I believe, a question for Peter. We'll try to tackle that one, and then other questions that come in, we may have to get those by email. Wes, do you want to go ahead and bring that question up for us?
Yeah, I just want to double check if Peter is on, because he had to step away for a minute. Pete, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, Pete, awesome. We have a question here from Von Cork, and the question is, he would love it if some of the IWFAQ RP stuff was in a metric instead of having units, like not feet. Says he's using the product now for smoke approvals. Do you know anything on that?
The key thing on any of the products that are out there right now associated with weather, which is Brett Anderson's work, for approval of burning, you need to use weather service products. It's really, prognostic and out in the future. By policy, we use the weather service for final dialogue on go no go stuff. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you cut in and out a little bit. So in terms of smoke products, they help support any good positive decision. Blue Sky Playground has been modified to be run quicker now, which has made a huge difference in Region 9, processing a ton of model runs for their efforts and record-breaking prescribed fire season, as well as some other tools. So, the smoke modeling portion of all this stuff is, available and readily used. I think I got that question right. If not, I can follow up, communicate with me directly.
All right, appreciate it, Pete. And then Diane, I think that's all we have for questions. Pretty quiet out there.
All right, very good. Thanks for your patience, everyone. A lot of good information today. Today's webinar has been recorded, and it will be hosted on the Fire Environment Continuing Education Subcommittee page. There's usually a delay of a couple of weeks. We've got some magic people in the back, to include Ron Steffens, who does some of the slicing and dicing and cleaning up the webinar, so we can give it to you, and it's easier for you to locate the speakers you're looking for. With that, I think we wrapped it up. Thanks everyone for your participation. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in the fall.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, presenters and everybody on the line.